What is up, Tube users? I'm the Stereotypical Gamer, and welcome back to another installment of Overwatch 2 Heroes, an in-depth guide. So recently, we've been going over some of my least played heroes, but today I thought we'd switch things up and talk about my most played hero in Overwatch 2, Lifeweaver. Let's get right into things and talk about his primary fire. Lifeweaver's primary fire is Healing Blossom. This is a charged heal that heals targeted allies similarly to how Zenyatta uses his orbs. At a minimum charge, the Blossom heals for 10 HP. If held for 1 second or longer, the maximum charge heals for 70 HP. Lifeweaver can hold the fully charged Healing Blossom indefinite, but it comes at a cost at minus 25% movement speed penalty. The max range an ally can be targeted for Healing Blossom is 30 meters. A couple interesting things to note about this ability is Healing Blossom's projectile can go through terrain if it's targeting an ally, but it cannot travel through enemy barriers or defense matrix or anything of the sort. The charge speed for charging a full Blossom can be sped in an allied Kiriko's Kasune rush. One last thing to note is Healing Blossom will automatically reload after 2.5 seconds when using his secondary fire. Speaking of, let's go over his secondary fire. Lifeweaver's secondary fire is Thorn Volley. This is a projectile-based attack that deals 6 damage per shot. While it's not a lot of damage, he does fire shots quite quickly at around 11 shots per second, and each individual shot fires 2 thorns. That, combined with a fairly large magazine size of 80, he's very good at laying down a suppressive fire. The spread for this weapon starts at 0 and builds to its maximum spread after 20 shots. One thing to note about his Thorn Volley is it will also automatically reload after 2.5 seconds when using his Healing Blossom. Now, let's move on and talk about his first ability. Lifeweaver's first ability is Petal Platform. This is an arcing projectile that once it falls to the ground creates a petal-like platform. If any friend or foe steps on the platform, they will be lifted up 12 meters for 10 seconds. The platform itself has 400 HP and can be shot while on the ground or in the air. The cooldown for this ability also starts when the platform is thrown. Lifeweaver can also destroy his own platform prematurely by pressing the button again. This affects the platform if it's in the air or on the ground. One thing to note about this ability is if you jump when the petal reaches its pinnacle, you can gain some extra jump height from the momentum the platform has from carrying you. Now, let's go over Lifeweaver's next ability. Lifeweaver's second ability is Rejuvenating Dash. This is a dash that works similarly to how Hanzo's dash works, at least by default. While in the air, if Lifeweaver presses the jump button again, he can dash in any direction horizontally and gains 50 health. If Lifeweaver doesn't do any directional inputs, he'll dash the way he's facing, but if you use any sort of directional inputs, he'll dash the way of the input. This can also be triggered by double jumping. Now, let's go over Lifeweaver's next ability. Lifeweaver's third ability is Life Grip. This ability pulls an ally that is up to 30 meters away to you and gives them 50 HP. This works similarly to his Healing Blossom, as it can only be used on targeted allies. While an ally is being pulled, they are invulnerable to all damage. Life Grip does not cleanse a target of negative effects, however it does stop them from taking any damage from damage over time effects while being pulled. Life Grip can only be used on targeted allies in Ashe's Bomb. While this ability does seem like it could be a trolley kind of ability to use on teammates, it's actually a great tool when used properly to get a teammate out of a sticky situation that they would otherwise die from. It's also worth noting that Life Grip cannot be used when allies are using certain abilities. There's a lot of specific abilities that this pertains to, but most of the time it's when an ally is using an ultimate that you cannot Life Grip them. Speaking of ultimates, let's go over Lifeweaver's. Lifeweaver's ultimate ability is Tree of Life. This is a placed ultimate that heals all allies within its range for 150 HP instantly when placed, and an additional 75 HP every 1.75 seconds. The duration of this ultimate is 15 seconds, so in total there is 8 pulses of 75 HP each, if the tree lasts for its full duration. All allies within 12 meters and are in line of sight of the tree will receive healing from it. If an ally is full HP, 50% of the healing will be converted to overhealth, up to a maximum of 100 overhealth. The health of the tree is one of the largest health pools in the game, at 1200 HP. A couple things to note about this ultimate is it can be cancelled by pressing the ultimate button again. While it's rare to want to do this, it can be useful if placed improperly because Lifeweaver cannot gain ult charge while the Tree of Life is active. This ultimate can also be placed on payloads in escort and hybrid maps and will travel with it for its duration. One final thing to note is that the Tree of Life will heal through Petal Platform as long as it's within 12 meter radius. Now that we've gone over all his abilities, let's take a look at heroes that counter and are countered by Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver is a great backline support hero. His main utility comes from giving his allies high ground with his Petal Platform and pulling allies out of a bad situation. As for a tank hero Lifeweaver plays well against, I'm gonna go with Zarya. Zarya is all about being up close and personal and disrupting enemies that way, which Lifeweaver can easily avoid with any of his abilities. Plus, as a bonus, his Petal Platform will activate and save allies that are caught in Zarya's ultimate ability. A DPS hero Lifeweaver plays well against is Mei. While I definitely wouldn't call this a hard counter by any means, Lifeweaver does play well against Mei thanks to his vertical escape ability thanks to his Petal Platform. And while Mei can get vertically from her ice wall, it unfortunately doesn't go as high as Petal Platform. Plus, Lifeweaver is able to save an ally from Mei's ultimate by light gripping them out of it. Finally, a support hero Lifeweaver plays well against is Brigitte. Again, this isn't a hard counter by any means, but what Lifeweaver can do well against Brig is keep his allies away from her melee range, thanks to his Petal Platform and Life Grip. Now, let's look at the flip side of things and see which heroes counter Lifeweaver. While Lifeweaver does have good escape ability, once his cooldowns are used, he's very vulnerable because his damage isn't good enough to win most 1v1 fights. A tank hero that plays well against him is Winston. Winston can easily dive a Lifeweaver, even on his Petal Platform. That, plus Lifeweaver's heals cannot penetrate Winston's bubbles, making it a tough matchup for Lifeweaver. A DPS hero that plays well against Lifeweaver is Genji. Genji is excellent at diving enemy backlines and taking them out. And while Lifeweaver could usually escape with his Petal Platform, it can be tough to escape a diving Genji thanks to his wall climb plus his double jump. Finally, a support hero that plays well against Lifeweaver is Ana. While this isn't a hard counter matchup, Ana typically plays in her own backline similarly to Lifeweaver. The biggest difference is Ana has the range to deal some damage to Lifeweaver, plus all her utility can be used to its full extent, and there's nothing Lifeweaver can really do to stop it, unfortunately. Now that we've gone over all the counters, let's dive into some tips and tricks for Lifeweaver. One tip I have is to go into your options and controls and change to Lifeweaver specifically, and go and turn on the legacy control scheme. While this is somewhat difficult to get used to, as I would say the control scheme that's defaulted is a little bit easier to use overall, it really helps because this way you don't have to jump to use your rejuvenating dash, and I've found more times than not I die from doing that jump dash. With this you can dash while on ground level and you don't have to be up in the air, which it doesn't save you a whole lot, but there's enough noticeable times where I realized that it did save me and actually made a difference. Well, the default control scheme is definitely easier for mixing in damage and healing because it plays a lot like how Moira plays. I really feel like switching the dash to not having to jump is just so overly important that I would just at least try it out if you haven't. Another important tip that I have for Lifeweaver is to place your Petal Platforms before fights start. Just place it in spots that you think you would want to get up to, whether it just be like a high ground on a different level or just be at a different higher line of sight to where the fight would be happening. Because the cooldown for Petal Platform starts once it's thrown, That way you can have that time when the cooldown is up to maybe get a second platform in if need be. A lot of teammates don't tend to use pedal platform when it could be a huge advantage for them. So what I like to do to try and get my teammates to use my pedal platforms is to ping them, because when you ping them it shows up on your teammates map and Lifeweaver has a voice line saying where it is and stuff, so it can be really helpful to ping your platforms if you want your teammates to use them. Another thing that I like to do with Lifeweaver is weaving in damage and healing. Typically I like to start a fight damaging because usually nobody's going to be low enough to actually heal. So I'll usually go through a full clip of my Thorn Volley, and then if you do 2 full charged heals plus like a half charge one, that will give it enough time for your Thorn Volley to be automatically reloaded. So it's a good way to kind of just weave both of those in through a fight. And typically when I have my Tree of Life active, I'm only using my Thorn Volleys. Usually the Tree of Life can heal my allies enough that I don't have to worry about healing them myself. So it's a good way to get some damage in while the Tree of Life is active. I think Life Grip it's a really great tool for getting teammates out of a bad position, but it's also a good way to get a teammate into a fight. Like say your tank died and they're coming back from spawn, you're able to pull them, which the pull speed of allies is faster than most movement speed abilities. Obviously there's some like Reinhardt's charge that are a little bit faster, but for the most part you can grip them back into a fight, and it can be helpful to get them back in quickly. Another fun thing to try, especially if you are playing with a buddy that you have like comms with, is to pair your pedal platform and grip with their ultimate. Now it works best with like a Cassidy's High Noon, but you can have some fun and creative ultimates like using Orissa's ultimate, Reinhardt's Shatter. There's a couple of fun ones that you can do, because if you are on your pedal platform, you have high ground above them, and then you pull them and they use a movement ability, they'll get some extra momentum and extra height, and it can be a good way to like slingshot them over your pedal platform into the enemy backlines, and can make for some really cool plays if pulled off properly. Another thing that's super useful is if you're playing with an allied Ashe, is to use your Life Grip and pedal platform to raise and maneuver Bob around. When Lifeweaver first came out, they had this game mode Bob and Weave, and I really wish it would come back because it was really fun. But basically it was 3v3, everyone was Lifeweavers, plus you had a Bob on your team, and it gave you a really good idea of how you can maneuver around a inanimate teammate like Bob, and it can be really a good way to throw off the enemies, because they see Bob and typically Bob just stays in one position, but to be able to pull and raise Bob can really throw enemies off. The final tip I have for Lifeweaver is to use his Thorn Volley as more of a suppressive fire kind of thing, and not try and get kills with it. It doesn't do enough damage that you're gonna get kills, but it's a really good way to hold a line of sight. Just spam where the enemies are going to be and just keep them off of that line of sight. It's super useful that way. But that's all the tips and tricks I have for you today. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment any other tips and tricks you have for Lifeweaver. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.